Hi, Mike Brenly, auctioneer. Discussing two terms today auctioneers use frequently: cost and value, and how those work together. So before we move on here, I just want to discuss what those two terms mean. Cost is a known, a fact. It is typically when you have a buyer and seller and somebody's selling and somebody's buying and there's transaction is consummated. That's the cost. That's what the buyer paid. That's what the seller sold it for. If I have a grand piano selling at auction and I say sold for $7,000 to bidder number 63. Well, bidder 63 is paying $7,000. My seller's getting $7,000 minus some cost of sale. So the cost was $7,000. Now our question is the other word, value. Value is an opinion, a guess, an estimate. Should be based on some sort of assemblage of facts and data. And our question would be, with that $7,000 piano we just talked about, if I say sold for $7,000, the cost is $7,000, is the value $7,000. Could a buyer of that piano say, I just bought a $25,000 piano for $7,000? Or could an onlooker say, gee, that guy paid $7,000 for a piano that's only worth about $500? Well, neither of those claims are necessarily correct at that moment in time, because at that moment in time it sold for $7,000, which means it's worth $7,000. Now, you could argue with that. You could argue with that. States sometimes argue with that. Courts have cases arguing that. We had a case here in Ohio, my home state. Case name was, I have it right here, Schwartz v. Cuyahoga County Board of Revision, 2015. Went to the Ohio Supreme Court. And the question was, Mr. Schwartz purchased a home from HUD, I believe, in an arm's length transaction. Wasn't sold under duress or pressure, and both parties having knowledge of the market, both parties freely entering into the transaction, not related, not a gift, not based in or tied to some other transaction, essentially arm's length, for $5,000. Now, the property had previously been on the tax rolls in Cuyahoga County, Cleveland, for $126,800. So Mr. Schwartz, proposed what he thought was fair. He thought he got a deal on it, but he said, I would be happy with $30,000. So he proposed the new valuation to be $30,000. And there was no argument up front, kind of went through, except somebody noticed, wait a minute, we got a house here, a property here worth, we think, worth $126,800, and he says it's only worth $30,000. Well, we're going to deny that. And they looked into how he purchased it, and they said, well, that's not an arm's length transaction. So you can't use that as a valuation. You can't use that as an appraisal. You're appraising it at 30. We're appraising it at 126.8, incidentally. Obviously, Mr. Schwartz would want a lower appraisal unless he's selling to pay less tax. The county would want it to be appraised higher so that he pays more tax. They can earn more tax. They both got a dog in this race here. Nevertheless, it went to the Ohio Supreme Court, and the Ohio Supreme Court said, if we've got a property selling at auction and it's arm's length, it's not a forced sale, not a court-ordered, not mandated sale, but selling with consent, knowledge and consent of the owner, in an open market, it's worth whatever it sells for. And we deem that if he thinks $30,000 is fair, that's what you're going to put it on the tax rolls for. Interesting. I like it. I like it. Is it worth what it sells for? We often say that. In my business, I've told hundreds, thousands of people that in my career. That Victrola, that dining room suit, that sterling set, that statuary, that artwork, that car, that property, that farm, is only worth what we can get for it. It's what someone's willing to pay for it. There's other kinds of appraisal, retail, indemnification, insurance, wholesale, liquidation, but we're talking fair market value here in terms of appraising. And it's only worth what someone's willing to pay for it, which means, and when they pay it, that's the cost, and the value, if it's only worth what someone just paid, cost equals value. Could you buy something and later sell it for more, or buy something and later sell it for less? Sure. Costs aren't constant in terms of what's selling today versus 6 months ago, 3 days ago. And values are only for the effective date, the date that we're looking and deciding it's worth that. That $7,000 piano sold for $7,000 is worth $7,000 today. What's it worth tomorrow, the next day, the next day? Well, things can change in a heartbeat. So it's only worth what you can get for it. It is worth what you got for it. Both phrases I think most auctioneers would agree with, but when you buy something at a discount in an open forum, arm's length, open to the market, not a forced sale, is it only worth what it sells for? The Ohio Supreme Court said, indeed, it's only worth what he paid for it. Mike Brantley, auctioneer. Pleasure to be with you today. Other videos on this same page, others forthcoming. Have a great day and stay safe.